All right, second and third grade students, we are going to paint our first layer of our Basquiat inspired mixed media artworks today. So I'm going over instructions for getting started. If you're sitting in the spot that has sink duty, you're going to take the cup of brushes. This is already on the supply shelf, and you are going to fill it up halfway with water and then flip your brushes so they are brush side down, so they're in the water. So you'll do that when I say it's time. I will pass out, each table is going to get one palette for paint. My sink person who gets the brushes, you are also going to get, just grab 2 paper towels, or if you're getting paper towels from the dispenser on the wall, just grab a few pieces. You don't need a lot. This is just to clean our brushes in between colors. And then my supply shelf organizer, you can take this big heavy thing of Blick art paints off the shelf. It's heavy, so use 2 hands to lift that up. All right, so whoever is my supply organizer, you're gonna distribute paint today. So you need to open these lids and see if they're opened. These are new, some of them are open, some of them are not. So if they're not opened, let's find one that's not. You know what, this table might not have any. It usually has just like a little tab on it, and you just peel it off, screw the lid back on, and we're going to open these up, and we're going to use the little cups today because we do not want to take too much of any colors. And look, I already got some on my hand. This is washable paint, so don't worry about that. If you get it on your hand, it's okay. You can just wipe it off. It shouldn't stain clothes, but we want to do our best to try not get it on our clothes. And you are just going to fill up those little circles because we don't want to take more paint than what we need. And we are only using colors today. So we're not going to use black or white. So we will use red, green, blue, and yellow. So you're going to take each color and you are just going to fill it. You don't even really need to squeeze the bottle. This paint is kind of runny. So go slow and careful and just tip it over, and maybe a gentle little squeeze. And that is it. You're gonna fill those up. So you'll have 4 colors, and you will probably have to do some refills if your group runs out of colors. So keep your paints off to the side, and then put these paints in the middle of the table that everybody can reach and dip their brushes into. And then give each person, you know, a paper towel in front of each person. And then you wanna get your big piece of white paper in front of you. All right, we are ready to paint. So let's talk about our painting instructions. I'm gonna put my paint here so you can see how I use it, but it should be in the middle of your table. You are gonna want to find a medium to large size brush. So this is a good size. We don't want to be using really tiny brushes today, like these. That's way too small. We're painting a background. Also, you guys have these are called fan brushes. I would not use a fan brush today. I'll talk about what those are for. But I really like the brushes that have the plastic handles that are colorful. So they're my favorite. I don't have enough for everyone to always have one of those, but these are gonna be good for painting your background. So I'm gonna use this one, and I'm gonna dry it off because these paints are wet already. So I do not need a wet brush. And what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna be painting my background with some large shapes. We're gonna think geometric shapes and kind of filling in my background. I'm gonna start with a color, and I want you guys to see how I dip this. I am not going to scoop the paint. And sorry guys, my camera is angling a little bit. Let me fix that. I am not gonna scoop the paint. I am just going to dip my brush in. See this gold part right here? I don't wanna get paint on that. I'm only trying to get paint on the bristles of my brush. So maybe I'll start with green so you guys can actually see. That is how much paint I'm using. I am not scooping. I am just dipping the tip of my brushes in. So I'm gonna start, and our backgrounds do not have to be super neat. You guys saw some of Basquiat's artwork. It's a little bit messy, so don't worry about trying to make it super neat. When you run out of paint and it starts to get streaky like that, you just dip it again. I'm kind of painting a square, or I'm sorry, a rectangular shape right here. I don't necessarily have a plan. I just know I'm going to be using geometric like shapes to fill in my background. So this is gonna be a rectangular shape. And we're gonna be adding a lot of layers on top of these backgrounds. So again, we're not looking for perfection. We're kind of just going in at it without a plan today. All right, so I'm done. That's my rectangle. I need to clean my brush because I'm gonna switch colors. You don't need to pick up the water cup, but I want you guys to see it. So I'm gonna gently tap my brush so it touches the bottom. We don't ever wanna really harshly tap our brushes because it'll ruin them. And that's when we need paper towel because we wanna get any of that excess green paint out. And then I'm ready to switch colors. I'm gonna go to red next. And I think I'm gonna do like a circle down here. Again, I'm not too concerned with it being perfect because you guys saw Basquiat's artwork. It has a very messy style, which is intentional. So we're just trying to lay down some big blocks of color. So yes, we want to make our shapes pretty big. We don't want a bunch of small shapes. We kind of want just a few really big shapes. Okay, we have completed our story brainstorm. So we did this in class already if we're watching this video. And I just want to review my story brainstorm. So I chose my dog, Lux, who we talked about a little bit, to be the character that is going to be the story in my artwork. And I wrote a very short story about how Lux was my best dog friend. He was super loyal, but he would bark at other dogs. So sometimes people thought he seemed a little scary, but he only showed me love. And then these are my symbols for things that represent parts of my story. So for the barking, I'm going to use these lines to show that symbol to represent the barking, that he was a very loud barker. I'm going to use hearts to represent love. That one's pretty easy. And then I did these two overlapping circles to represent his loyalty. On the back, I practiced drawing silhouettes of dogs, and I looked up pictures on the iPad. So I Googled dog silhouettes, and you can use the spelling on our handout to help you find that. And I used my pencil to practice these. Now, remember, Basquiat's style was not very realistic, so don't worry about trying to make this look exactly like the person or the animal that you're drawing. We looked at some other examples of his work, and it does not have to look realistic. So that's the fun thing about this type of art, is that it can turn out looking very abstract, and it can still be. So I'm going to choose one of these to be my silhouette that I'm going to draw on my paper. So I'm going to have this next to me while I'm drawing so I can copy it. And I think I like this one better. So that is the one I'm going to draw. And I'm using a pencil. We can erase even though we have paint on our paper. Let me make sure everything's lined up. Okay. So I like to just kind of mark off where things are going to go. So the head is going to go here. And we're going to be painting over this, so don't worry about making a lot of lines. Now, if your painting was very dark, the background, and it's hard for you to see, you can use a white colored pencil to do this step so that you can see your background a little bit better, or see what you're drawing a little bit better on top of your background. So go ahead and use a white colored pencil if you had a very dark background that just had too much going on to be able to see pencil. Okay, so again, if I had mistakes and things, I can erase and change it, but I'm happy with this. I'm not trying to make a super realistic looking dog. This fits the bill, and I'm ready to paint. So we're just going to be using black. I'll either give you guys little cups like this, or we'll use the paint palettes and we'll put them in the middle of the table where everybody can reach. And I definitely encourage you to use somewhat of a smaller brush today, just so that you can actually try and stay within the boundaries of the silhouette that you're going to be painting. Remember, when we use paint, we are not scooping, we're just dipping to get enough on our bristles, trying not to get it here on the gold part. And today we got to be a little more careful, but it can be a little messy still, because that's the fun of this Basquiat style, is it can be a little messy. All right, I am going to put my brush in my water cup when I'm done painting so that I can clean it. And that's it. Second and third grade, I have our next steps for our Basquiat inspired story artworks or mixed media collages. We've been calling it a lot of different things. So this video is going to go over oil pastel storage and how to use these. We're going to talk about adding some construction paper and cardboard to collage into our background. We're also going to learn how to use what is called a glue sponge. So lots of important information. I'm going to put this off to the side for a moment and just talk about oil pastels. So these are oil pastels. They have the label on them. They're on the drawing shelf. And when you go to use them, hopefully the last group securely push the lid on. So the way you open these is you kind of loosen the corners, and then you should be able to just pop it off. You'll see that there are compartments. I like them to be separated, like this one is in the wrong spot. So that happens. Sometimes we have to reorganize them because eventually these are not going to have paper on them. The paper will get taken off, and we want the colors that are similar to each other stored together so that they don't get different colors mixed all over them. We also, if we're mixing colors, these are the groups that mix well. So I'm just going to review what colors go in each bin. Not bin, but like compartment. So I will have your class practice. You'll very carefully dump them out without letting any roll on the floor. And we will practice putting them away. So start with your neutral colors. We've got black. You should have 4. Black goes in its own container. Then white. You should have 4 of those as well. Then our warm colors. That's going to be red. You should have 2. Yellow. You should have 2. Orange. You should have 2. And then brown is also going to be a warm color. Then we're going to put our cool colors in the next section. We have a light green, we have a dark green, and we have blue. Then we have our pink, purple, and peach. All of our colors that start with P's. Pink, purple, and peach. So those are how we should keep them organized so that we know what colors mix well. And again, when they don't have their wrappers on them, they don't get dirtied up by the colors that they don't mix well with. So we will be using those later on when we're done. Snap it on nice and secure, goes back on the storage shelf. But our next step is actually going to be adding a little more background. So we're gonna be doing some construction paper, and if you want, you can try some cardboard as well. Try to pick colors that will go well with your background. I'm going to use red and blue, and we are not using scissors for this. We're actually going to be tearing our paper, and you can tear it in whatever shapes you want. So you can make some interesting shapes. You can keep them big, keep them small. So I'll have a box of all kinds of construction paper, and you'll get a chance to go grab some. And before you put them on, maybe just kind of think about where you want things to go. You can kind of lay it out. If you were someone who didn't have enough time to add a lot of color to your background, this is a good opportunity for you to get a little bit more color going on. You can do some overlapping if you want. Okay, so decide kind of where you want these colors to go. And then we're going to talk about how to use the glue sponge. This is such an awesome way for gluing things and getting them to be fully glued and flat on your paper. It's in the same type of container as the oil pastel. So we open it up. We do not want to touch this with our hands because it has glue all over it and it will make your hands very sticky. So what you're going to do when you're ready to glue is you take your paper, you set it on top of the glue sponge, and you're going to poke just your paper. You don't want to poke the sponge or you're going to get glue all over your fingers. And when you lift it up, there should be a nice even coating of glue. And then you can press it down onto your paper, and it should be nice and fully flat and glued. Sometimes you'll get a little bit of glue on your fingers. We are not washing our hands. We can go like this and it will just come right off. All right. Okay, so you may decide that you want more construction paper than I have. You may want less, it's your choice. That's how much I'm gonna go with for this particular collage. And in the box that has all the construction paper will be some ripped up pieces of cardboard, and I want to use some on mine. This is completely optional because I think it just adds a nice texture and some more interesting layering to go on in the background. With this cardboard, you can tear it apart. Let me show you. It's pretty easy to tear with your hands and reveal this really cool textured interior part of the cardboard. So I'm gonna get some of that revealed, and then I'm gonna put that on my collage just like that. I want a lot of glue for this because cardboard is thicker. So I'm really gonna press it into my glue sponge. Make sure I get a good amount of glue on the back of that. Needs more. Okay. And I might want to hold this one for, 20 seconds or so because it's thicker. It's going to take a little more to get it really adhered to my paper. Okay. I want a few more areas, so I'm going to do that. Okay. I think I'm happy with that. If I decide I want to add more later, I'll do that off camera. Always, always close your glue sponge when your group is done, because if we leave it open, this will just turn into a hard, dried brick of sponge and we will not be able to revive it. Very important that we close this. Hear it click, push all the way around, and we know it's good to go, and it goes on the bottom of the supply shelf by where the glue sticks and scissors are. Okay. Next steps. So we are going to be using our oil pastels now. Move all my other stuff out of the way. Open these up. Now you all have a planning document where you came up with different symbols for your story, and we are going to use our oil pastels to add some of those symbols to our background. And you can use whatever colors you'd like, but just consider how they're going to show up on top of what you painted. So for example, I wouldn't want to use yellow on top of yellow. That's not going to work very well. So I'm going to look at my planning document. You'll have yours in front of you as well, and I'm going to take some of those symbols and place them around the background. You can also put words in there if you want that relate to your story. So if you want to write a few words, Basquiat often included words in his background as well. All right, so I'm going to talk about what I did here. My three symbols were, I had the lines for the barking, which I just decided to put them by the dog's mouth because my dog would bark all the time at other dogs. I had hearts, which were to represent love from my story. And remember, Basquiat's style is very sketchy and kind of messy, so I didn't worry about making my hearts look super pretty. I drew them kind of sloppy because I wanted that quick, very painterly looking style. And then my other symbol was the overlapping circles that looks like a Venn diagram to show loyalty. And I repeated that quite a few times and even overlapped it over some things in my background. And I have some more space. I might decide to add more, but I like to stop and examine my artwork and think about it, because you can always add more, but you can't take it away once it's on there. So that's as far as we're going to take it today. Have fun. In this video, I'm going to go over the very last step for finishing our Basquiat collages, and I have some X-ray image inspiration. These are all Basquiat artworks that show examples of how he added these kind of almost X-ray-like drawings on top of his figures. Remember, he was very into that book, Gray's Anatomy, which was all about the human body and what is inside of us, our bones and our organs. So he had a lot of paintings that showed the inspiration of kind of seeing the inside of the people or the figures that he drew. So we're gonna take some inspiration from some of these images today. Look at this one, it kind of looks like you can see the lungs of the person, right? And we're gonna add some details to our silhouettes. Now, we're not going to be looking up our animals or our people to actually know what the inside looks like. We're just going to use our imagination and our oil pastels. So let me grab them. Remember, we pull from the corners. And hopefully my last class did a good job of organizing these. You'll see that a lot of them are starting to break and the paper's coming off, and that's okay. That's just what happens when we use oil pastels a lot. You'll get wipes at the end of class, so if you're using them and they have no paper on them and your hands are getting dirty, you'll get wipes. But just fix them if they're not organized properly from the last group. We're gonna mainly stick to using white today. There should be 4 whites in each of your containers. If there's not, hopefully I have some extras to pass out. And if your white is really dirty, like this one, and you want to clean it off, you can just get a paper towel and you can wipe it off. So I am going to examine my dog and kind of think about what parts of the interior skeletal system I want to show based on where I'm at. So maybe I'll start with the face. And there's no right or wrong way to do this. I'm just going to do a line with some lines across that as if that would have been the dog's mouth. Maybe a circle for the eye. Right here would be like the spine and the rib cage. Maybe I want to, again, signify a spine. Maybe some ribs. And you can definitely add some color if you want to have some color in there as well. I'm going to go ahead and put my symbol, which was the heart, on there. And I think that's it. I don't think I'm going to add too much more. I don't want to overwhelm it with too many different things going on. But today's our last day to work on these. So if you have other things you want to add, we're not going to get all the paint out again, but if you wanted to add a little more construction paper, that'll be out. If you wanted to add more symbols, your oil pastels are out. So you can definitely add more construction paper or do more oil pastel things in the background, but I am pretty happy with this. So this is going to be it. Mine is finished. All right, have fun finishing yours up today.